Hello, fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I'm Marissa, and today I am very excited to chat with you about some historical fiction books that have been calling to me lately. So you may or may not already be aware that my friend Katie from Books and Things is hosting a historical fiction readathon for the month of May, and I could not be more excited because historical fiction is my favorite genre of all time. I have so many historical fiction books that I want to read that are on my radar, and so I raided my shelves and grabbed quite a few of them that I felt like talking about today. I don't really want to call this a TBR because I'm terrible at sticking to TBRs, and this is far too many books to read in 1 month anyway. But it's sort of a realm of possibilities for me, or books that I've been thinking about. So I would love to hear some input from you guys. Which of these books have you read and loved and think I should get to sooner rather than later? Which of these books do you want to read or are also on your shelves? I just want to hear all of your thoughts about historical fiction and these books in particular in the comments down below. The first book I have is Inland by Tia Obrecht. This is a book that I've been looking forward to and an author that I've wanted to try for a while. This is about the Wild Wild West in Arizona, I believe, in the 1890s, and it's about a woman who is waiting for her men to come home. They were in search of water or something like that, and she encounters this outlaw who apparently can see lost souls. So it just sounds really interesting and really up my alley. It's historical fiction that may or may not feature some supernatural elements, and that is kind of my favorite. So this should be an interesting book and one that hopefully I'll get to soon. The next book I have is Sebastian Barry's Days Without End. From what I understand, this book is about the Civil War era in the US. It takes place in about the 1850s, I think, and focuses on two men, two boys really, I think they're about 17, who are dealing with the horrors and trauma that they have seen in the war and also dealing with their sexuality. I do believe this is an LGBTQ themed book and one I've heard some great things about. Next, I have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have recently become slightly obsessed with Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's an author I want to read a lot more by. I've so far read Daisy Jones and the Six, as well as Malibu Rising. I just read Malibu Rising this past month, or maybe a month ago, and I still haven't gotten the chance to chat about it on this channel, but I absolutely adored it, and I've heard wonderful things about The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. From what I understand, it's about sort of 50s era Hollywood glam, and one of the husbands featured in the book has a tie to Malibu Rising in some way, shape, or form. So that's intriguing enough for me. Honestly, the amount of people who recommended this book and the author's name on the cover is really all I need to be interested in this. Oh, before I forget, I have a book that I'm very excited about that is not in this stack sitting next to me, and that is because I have an advanced e-copy of it. So there's nothing to really hold up for you today, but that is Natasha Pulley's newest book coming out in the end of June 23rd, and that is The Half-Life of Valerie Kaye. I am so excited for this book. Natasha Pulley is one of my favorite authors, certainly one of my favorite contemporary authors, and this book, when I first read the synopsis, I thought that it was dystopian or, set in the future somehow, but it's actually historical fiction. It's based on true events from the 1960s in the Russian gulags. It's about a Russian biochemist who is studying radiation and the effects of radiation in this secret and very mysterious town called City 40. I looked it up and I have some more reading to do, but the real history of City 40 is fascinating, terrifying, and something that I had no idea existed. So I highly recommend that you look it up or just read the book, probably, because it's Natasha Pulley and I'm sure it's going to be amazing. On a very different note, the next book I have is Circe by Madeline Miller. I absolutely adored Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles, and I have put off reading this book for quite a while. Now that I have it on my shelves, there's just no excuse. I've heard so many positive things about it. From what I understand, this book is about Circe, who has the power of witchcraft and is banished to a desert island where she interacts with many famous characters from mythology, including Daedalus, the Minotaur, and Icarus. It's a feminist retelling, and I am so excited to just revisit Madeline Miller's voice and world and writing style. Next, we're off to the late 1600s Amsterdam with The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I've heard just such wonderful things about this book, and from what I understand, the main character is gifted a dollhouse that is an exact replica of her house. But this wedding gift begins to mirror real life in really strange and eerie ways and takes a turn more towards the gothic. And then I have a Tracy Chevalier book, Remarkable Creatures. Tracy Chevalier is one of my favorite historical fiction authors. I find her premises to be really interesting, and her time periods really gel with things that I enjoy reading about. Remarkable Creatures takes place in the 19th century and features a middle-class spinster who is also a fossil hunter. That about does it for me. Takes a lot of my interests and shoves them all together. Women in science, the 19th century. This sounds right up my alley and is something I can't believe I've had on my shelves for this long without reading. Next is an author that I really would love to try, and that is Stacey Halls. I have The Familiars as well as The Foundling. The Familiars is about the Pendle Witch Trials, I believe, and The Foundling, I think, is unrelated, but takes place in the late 1700s and has to do with orphans and motherhood. I don't really know much more, but I don't really think I need to. I've been told by very reputable sources that these two are fantastic. Next, I have The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. I've wanted to read this book for a while, and I've even started it many, many years ago before I had a booktube channel. But then it had to be returned to the library, and I started something else, or had to go back to school, or who knows what really happened. But I have this book now on my shelves, and I can't wait to read it at some point. It takes place in the mid-1800s in New Zealand and has to do with the gold rush there, which I know next to nothing about. It's kind of a monster of a book, which is why I haven't revisited it since starting it all those years ago. The next book I have is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. This is a book that takes place in the early 19th century in Iceland and is about the last person to be publicly beheaded there. It sounds really interesting, but maybe something I save for the winter months. We'll see. And last but not least, I have some Emma Donoghue books here. I have Slammerkin, which takes place in the 18th century in London and features a prostitute and the importance of clothing and appearances. I don't know much more than that. And then I have Emma Donoghue's short story collection, which is still historical fiction somehow, called The Woman Who Gave Birth to Rabbits. And it features all sorts of different stories about, quote, the sideshows of humanity lost to traditional history over the last 700 years. So I'm really interested in seeing how historical fiction can be portrayed in short story form. And that is apparently what this book does. So those are all of the books that I have pulled off my shelves for this video. Hopefully I will read some of them during the month of May, but this is by no means all of the historical fiction books that I'm interested in. I'm sure I will watch some BookTube and get even more recommendations. There also might be some good historical fiction books in a different stack of books I have on the floor right now, which is my birthday book haul. So there's a chance I'll read some of those as well. I would love to hear from you guys which of these books you've read, which of these books you hope I read soon, and are there any in here that you think I'd like more than others based on what you know about me and my tastes? These are just some of the books that have been really speaking to me and calling to me lately, and I do hope that I get around to them at some point in the near future. I'd love to know what historical fiction books are your favorites. What are you looking forward to reading this month? And until next time, I look forward to seeing you in another video very soon. Bye!